family and friends, and a time to watch the Indy cars run at the Burke Lakefront Airport. This temporary circuit is as unforgiving as it is challenging. One slip in concentration can mean the end of the day for driver and machine. The bumpy runways take their toll on these high-tech cars and their world-class drivers, but there is a rich history on this sometimes treacherous racecourse. 1982, the first year CART competed here. It was Bobby Rahal that outclassed the field to earn his first win in an Indy car. He comes here winless in 91, but is on top of the PPG points chase. 1986, when Danny Sullivan pushed his car to the limit, he led 59 of 88 laps and took the checkered flag. Now Sullivan is a three-time winner here, and he comes to Cleveland trying to help his Alfa Romeo team to its first ever win. 1989, Michael Andretti started on the pole and led the first 26 laps. Then, a collision in the pits with his father Mario gave the lead over to Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi went on to win the race, adding a PPG championship to his 2 Formula One titles. Today's race for Fittipaldi is a time to close in the points chase. Last year's race at this airport circuit saw both highs and lows. Al Unser Jr. moved up on the start from 4th place to take a commanding lead. But then tragedy struck when a pit fire ended little Al's day. With the fire, Danny Sullivan inherited the lead and went on to take the checkered flag. But now, the Indy cars prepare to do battle once again on the airport runways. It's the 10th running of the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. ESPN, the world's leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. For 363 days out of the year, the Burke Lakefront Airport is a regular, fully operational air facility. But for this weekend, it belongs to the PPG IndyCar World Series. Hello and welcome to Cleveland. I'm Paul Page. We hope you're enjoying your 4th of July weekend. What an appropriate time to welcome home all the veterans of the Gulf War. As a matter of fact, to welcome home all veterans of all wars. Today, firecracker hot, temperatures above 92 degrees. The course, because it's an airport, is also very rough. So, Derek Daly, how does that affect the run?
Well, although this is a temporary facility, Cleveland really has produced some tremendous racing in the past. And one of the reasons for that is the runways here are 150 feet wide at some places. That's about 4 times wider than a normal road racing facility. Now, what does that do? It reduces the risk factor of making a pass, because if you do mess it up and get it wrong, chances are you can get away with it. Something else to consider, the heat factor. It's above 90 degrees here. When the driver puts on 5 layers of fireproof uniform, it's above 120 degrees in the car. It's a very hostile environment for the driver to work in for a 2-hour period.
So it's hot and it's rough here at the Burke Lakefront Airport. There's also the problem being reported now that in some places the track is breaking up. We'll be back with more from the Cleveland Grand Prix right after this. So the Indy cars are approaching the halfway point in their season here on the shores of Lake Erie at the Burke Lakefront Airport, a race course that creates quite a challenge here. And one simply, when one has to think about challenges, remember back to the very last event at Portland, as the drivers here are beginning to strap into their cars now. And think of that start when Michael Andretti worked his way up from the 2nd row, jumped through the front row, shouldering aside Rick Mears and Emerson Fittipaldi to take the lead of the race. Here's a view of that start once again. Now watch Michael Andretti from the 2nd row. Rick Mears darts to the side, no contact there, and then in the very first turn, Michael took the lead. He only gave up the lead for 2 laps during pit stops. Well, so now we have a very interesting front row. Emerson Fittipaldi is on the pole. Michael Andretti will start alongside. So let's go down to the front row. Gary Gerald with the pole sitter.
Paul, Emerson Fittipaldi has just been belted into the cockpit of his car with a new track record from the pole. Emerson, all of the talk about that start in the last race at Portland, how much does that concern you going into turn number 1 here on another wide open circuit?
Well, it's a very wide track. Very difficult to get the right braking point into turn 1. But, you know, I spoke with Michael and we tried to have a safe start and safe beginning of the race. Behind is our junior and Rick, and it should be okay.
Have you talked to Michael Andretti about the start?
Yes, I spoke with Michael, and for sure we're competing, but we try to respect each other.
All right. Well, Michael is just about 12 feet to Emerson's left. Jan Beekes is right there.
Thank you, Gary. We're here with Michael, and as we just heard Emerson say, he has spoken with Michael before the start. We had a wild one at Portland, but this time you don't have to bust your way through. You have a clear track. Do you have a different strategy here?
Well, it's always different, and here it's going to be tougher probably actually starting in the front row than starting the second row, because the guys behind us can, have a choice on what to do where we don't. So it's going to be an interesting start.
Okay, Michael Andretti ready to try for his first win here at Cleveland. Paul?
That's the front row. They're buckled in, set and ready to go. Michael Andretti and Emerson Fittipaldi. Now, the wings on these Indy cars play a much larger role than you might think. And Danny Sullivan explains in this week's Tip from the Cockpit.
Well, it's quite funny that we're here at an airfield when we're talking about lift and downforce. For example, an airplane taking off has its wings set in a certain way that gives it lift to get it up into the air and keep it into the air during the flight. But for a race car, we're trying to stay on the ground. So we have our wings reversed to an airplane, where when the air flows over those wings, it pushes the car down, which gives it more grip to the wheels and keeps the car on the ground and gives it great cornering through all the tight corners that we use. The trick at any racetrack, whether it's a fast racetrack like here in Cleveland or a tight track, is finding that balance between downforce and drag, which is how slow the car will go down the straightaway because you have too much wing in it. So the trick is to get that fine balance of where you have just enough downforce, but you're also fast down the straightaway. And that makes it very edgy to drive when you're really trying to do a trick qualifying lap or even during the race, because you want just the minimum amount of downforce to give you the maximum amount of grip. Here at Cleveland is probably one of the more critical tests of downforce and drag. You have to find a good amount of downforce because the corners are quite tight. You're coming off of an asphalt onto a concrete. That's very tricky, and it needs a good amount of grip, so you need a good amount of downforce. But the straightaways here are so long and so fast that if you get too much downforce, you're going to be slow on there and you're not going to be able to pass anybody, and you're going to get passed a lot yourself.
So trimming out those wings, absolutely critical here at what is now the IndyCar's fastest road circuit at the Burke Lakefront Airport. Well, it's time now as we go down to the starting field. Here is the governor of Ohio.
Gentlemen, start your engine.
And now one by one, the engines begin to fire. The front row once again, Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi. There's Emo, as he considers the challenge of the day, not the least of which is the tremendous temperatures here. There is a slight respite from the heat, above 92 degrees, because of a light breeze that blows across this track. In the second row, there is Al Unser Jr., the defending PPG Cup champion. And Michael Andretti outside the front row. He can look across just to his right and see Fittipaldi, Danny Sullivan, Alfa Romeo Power. Will it be their first win here today? And Rick Mears, the second of the Penske entries here today. John Andretti, his first win this year. They all sit, ready to go. Up and down the field, the indication is that everyone is, in fact, started. The engines, sometimes very difficult to start in this heat, are all started, and we're set to go. These methanol-powered Indy cars, producing over 750 horsepower, each now roaring out its challenge. And in just a minute, the field will begin to roll away. We'll be back. That string of magnificent PPG pace cars in front of the field now on this very hot day, beginning to work their tires into shape. The starting grid is brought to you by the Die Hard battery, now with more power when you need it most. The pole sitter with a new track record is Emerson Fittipaldi, a two-time winner of the Cleveland Grand Prix. Outside is Michael Andretti. He's won 2 of the last 3 IndyCar events. The second row, Al Unser Jr., winner of the 1985 event here on the shores of Lake Erie. And Rick Mears, this year's Indianapolis 500 winner. The third row on the inside is Mario Andretti. He hasn't won an IndyCar race since his triumph here at Cleveland in 1988. And Scott Pruitt, who ran 6 2 years ago in his only Cleveland effort. The fourth row, Bobby Rahal, winner of the inaugural running of the Cleveland Grand Prix. And Arie Luyendyk, who won on the Phoenix Mile in April. The fifth row, John Andretti, winner of the season opener in Queensland, Australia. And Scott Goodyear, a young Canadian who has 3 straight top 10 finishes. The sixth row, Danny Sullivan. His first career IndyCar win came on this course in 1984. And Eddie Cheever, 3 third-place finishes, all on road courses, are his best in the IndyCars. The seventh row on the inside is Scott Brayton, making his 7th start here at the Burke Lakefront Airport. And Ted Kravis, who ran a strong 6th on the streets of Long Beach in April. The eighth row on the inside is Tony Bettenhausen, a journeyman driver who has a pair of top 10 efforts this season. And Jeff Andretti, the youngest member of the famous Andretti clan. The ninth row on the inside is Mike Groff, who finished 9th here last year in his 3rd IndyCar start. And Willie T. Ribbs, who enjoyed a strong run at Detroit just 3 weeks ago. The 10th row on the inside is Didier Taze, a Belgium driver making his 4th appearance at this prestigious event. And Buddy Lazier, the sophomore driver out of Vail, Colorado. The 11th row on the inside is Hiro Matsushita, the sophomore driver from Japan, running his first full season in the IndyCars. And A.J. Foyt, who finished 7th here a year ago. And in the 12th row alone is John Jones, a Canadian, making his first IndyCar start since 1989. So there they are, the IndyCar drivers, Al Unser Jr., as they roll around this course on the pace lap. Let's go down to the pits, Gary Gerald.
Paul, we're in the pits of Al Unser Jr. He, of course, the defending IndyCar champion, but 5th in points, and he's had some frustration. Tough finishes, little nagging problems have plagued this team. He hasn't gotten the victories that he was getting at midseason last year. But he has today his best starting position inside row 2 since early in the season when he won on the streets of Long Beach. But this team and Al both know if he's to get back into the real heat of the championship points battle, a victory at Cleveland or a very high finish is certainly a necessity today. Let's go to Jan Beekes.
Thank you, Gary. This morning in the drivers' meeting, there were 2 key elements that were discussed. One, of course, was the start. And Wally Dallenbach, the chief steward, said, if anybody passes before that start-finish line, you are going to be black flagged. So we'll keep an eye out for that. The second was, it seems as though the track might be breaking up. And obviously, up in the booth, both Paul Page and Derek Daly can keep an eye on that. Paul?
We definitely will, Jan. The weather conditions, of course, 91 degrees right now. It should be hotter before the day is over. A chance of rain, but some cellular activity in the area that we hope doesn't affect this day. Perhaps it won't. Looks nice and clear right now. The field working its way around now. The completion of the pace lap is at hand. Beautiful view down at downtown Cleveland. And there are the onboard cameras. Let's take a look. Michael Andretti. We can look head on as Michael anticipates that green flag. And Bobby Rahal over his right shoulder as they now are on the straight, leading down toward the start-finish line, and Al Unser Jr. So 3 onboard cameras here today as the field comes onto the pit straight. Emerson Fittipaldi, the pole sitter. The left side of your screen brings them down. The green flag is out, and already they're racing. Look at Al Unser Jr. as he darts well to the inside and begins to challenge Fittipaldi as Michael takes a wide line to the outside. And Al Unser Jr. for the moment pushes his nose ahead and picks up the lead. Just like Portland, but a different name, a spectacular move on the start.
What a great move down the inside by Al Unser Jr. It's 100 feet wide leading into that first turn, but he got inside Emerson later on the brakes, and Emerson had no choice but to let him through. But did you see the funnel effect of the cars behind them? How can they all get through without touching wheels?
Well, you mentioned it right at the start of the show. It's so wide here that you can take chances you ordinarily wouldn't. So it's Al Unser Jr., followed by Fittipaldi, and then the Andrettis, Michael, then Mario. Now they thread their way through a chicane, and you see as they kick up there, that is one of the rough sections out in what we call the East Loop here at Cleveland. Now, coming back toward you, at this point on the track, as they accelerate to top speed, take a look at the ripples that they run over. It's a taxiway normally at this airport, Derek.
That's right. This is a very slippery area. You'll see the dark shadows there. It's very, very slippery there. It's a
of straightaway leading to a 4-corner East Loop, very difficult section. Michael comes up to challenge Little Al as Fittipaldi has an advantage in the corner and begins to pull away.
Great racing room here. This is turn 6, 7, and 8. Very bumpy. Just look at the bumps inside Michael's car. Another one here puts a wheel off the apex right there. Al Jr. kicks up some dust, but Michael Andretti about to give Al Jr. about to fill his mirrors.
In a Quaker State onboard camera shot there, you also get an opportunity to take a look at how rough it can be in some of the corners. We'll expand on that just a little bit later, but Fittipaldi now begins to pull away. The battle is between Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr. It is a fight for second, with Mario closing in right behind his son, and then Bobby Rahal. Right behind Rahal, take a look at that. That's Scott Pruitt. Now, there is a chassis that they are having some problem, Derek Daly, with the power. But here, that True Sports chassis seems to be working very well.
And the reason, I think, is because this car is a very good handling car, has good downforce, very fast through the corners. So the horsepower that they need on long straights is not as critical here. But a good day, a good afternoon by Scott Pruitt so far, and very good through every qualifying session here.
Pruitt trying to catch up with Bobby Rahal. The battle for fifth place. Pruitt currently runs in sixth. At the front of the order is Emerson Fittipaldi, followed by Al Unser Jr., Michael Andretti, Mario Andretti, then Rahal, then Pruitt. Ari Leyendijk is back just a little bit behind the 11 car. The Budweiser machine is Scott Pruitt. You can see the bright color of Ari's car, and it's brighter this week because now there's virtually no sponsor on it at all. Remember, at Portland, we talked about the possibility that he wouldn't be racing here. They worked a little bit on the effort. Ari is here, but not without a great deal of tension. At the front, there's Fittipaldi. And take a look at Michael as he lines up, trying to catch an inside line on Al Unser Jr. And the two of them battle again going into the first corner on this course.
Oh, and he does get him. He does get by Al Unser Jr. So much racing room to slide down the inside. Really gives a great opportunity. But Al Jr., he made a pass there earlier on. Oh, and Mario goes down the inside.
Mario comes underneath Al Unser Jr. And Mario and Michael both now have moved ahead of Al Unser Jr., but little Al's not having any of it. He's coming back to battle the elder Andretti. And Mario slaps the door shut on little Al.
My word, what a risky move. That was turn 5. Mario tried to go down the inside. Al Jr. tried to go on the outside. Al Jr. was going to make him work very hard. They got so close, but Al Jr., I think, made a wise decision and backed out of very close wheel-to-wheel racing.
At the front of the field, it's Emerson Fittipaldi still. And Scott Pruitt with a problem as they push the car to the edge of the course. Any indication that that engine's running? They're going to try to get him off the course or get him restarted. CART safety vehicle is right there. We'll keep an eye on Pruitt while we keep an eye on the front of the field. The white flag with the crossed red stripes in it indicates that there is an emergency vehicle on the circuit. The battle at the front continues as they're on the lakeside straight. And just ahead of them is that car of Scott Pruitt. As Fittipaldi now cycles through the chicane, Rahal should be on top of it just in a matter of seconds. They've got Pruitt clear to the side now and should try to get Scott Pruitt running again. And Emerson Fittipaldi continues at the top of the order, but Michael Andretti continues to challenge, followed by his father. We'll be back. Number 5, a Penske machine with Chevrolet power, runs in front. And you saw, just as he went through that corner, that puff of smoke. The smoke that you see is actually some dust from the repairs that they've made in several of these corners.
That's right. Yesterday we had a Trans Am race here, and the cars are so heavy they really chop up this pavement. This was repaved now before they came here, but the Trans Am cars are heavy. It's tremendously hot yesterday, and it literally churned that pavement up, which really was a major problem.
Let's get down to the pits. Gary Gerald has a report on Scott Pruitt.
Scott Pruitt came in under power. They started a routine change. It was apparently a spin in one of those transition areas, Paul, but as they were ready to bring him off the jacks, the man at the left rear pointed emphatically at the suspension. They've killed the engine now, and now they'll try to assess the damage. This has ominous overtones for Scott Pruitt, and they had such high hopes today coming into this event. But apparently a problem in the suspension at the left rear is the concern of the crew right now. From what we're seeing, it looks like it may be the end of the afternoon.
Of course, the question that you would have, Gary Gerald, is whether or not it's suspension or if it has to do with that transverse gearbox, as we are watching Mario Andretti hold off a challenging Al Unser Jr. in a fight for third place. Little Al on the pit straight came right up alongside the elder Andretti, as he is doing now. And boy, take a look at this view from the Quaker State onboard camera. And still, it is Mario that seems to be much quicker in those corners.
He really is. Boy, it's very difficult to outbrake someone like Mario. We see Al Jr. creeps down the inside, but unless he can get his car alongside Mario, you can't hope to get to the apex first. So he backs off, which is clever because he wasn't ready to make it. He'll have to wait till later on.
You know, you talk about outbraking, and at this track, that's a very important factor. It always has been. But you're discovering, Derek Daly, that the style one uses for braking is changing depending upon the driver.
Well, that's right. I mentioned in the Portland race about Rick Mears using his left foot. Well, I've since discovered Al Jr., not only on oval track racing, but on all road races uses his left foot, as does Bobby Rahal. And that's an unusual style they have developed. And Rick Mears believes that it actually helps him, because at the end of the race, when your feet get tired, you may miss the brake pedal. He said he never misses because he only uses his left foot, and the right one only stays on the throttle. So that's something new that I've learned, and I'm sure everybody else has learned also about road racing in particular.
It probably involves significant retraining with some of the drivers, and could be an absolute factor here because they should be very tired for the end of the day. Again, in the East Loop, the number 6 car, the Kmart Haviland machine that belongs to Mario Andretti. We're on board with Al Unser Jr. right now. One of the competitors here, A.J. Foyt, had a little problem just a little bit ago. We can show you that problem. A.J. very, very high off the corner.
Exiting turn 7, just gets a little bit too wide, drops those outside wheels onto the grass. Of course, that precipitates, can I say that word, the spin. One simple 360 and gets on his way. But A.J. Foyt not having a good day. Qualified 22nd.
Hiro Matsushita right behind, had to climb on the brakes. That was corner 7, too. Might be a little anticipatory to suggest that that's totally A.J., because that's one of the corners that's breaking up. He might have just gotten loose running through that corner.
That's right. Earlier today, we had another race, and the marbles offline, which get thrown up by the race cars running through the groove, is what causes the trouble when you go a little bit wide. That looks like what may have happened to A.J. Foyt.
Fittipaldi is still alone in front. Michael Andretti is second place. The battle is Mario Andretti and Al Unser Jr. for third. We can get an update on the Scott Pruitt situation now from Gary Gerald.
Well, here on the pit wall, one of the wheels from Pruitt's car, and as we come right in here, you can see there was contact with another car. That triggered the spin. The damage was in the suspension at the left rear. The wishbone has been bent. The crew quickly pushed the car away from the wall, back toward the paddock area. Pruitt stayed on that side of the wall, didn't get a chance to get a word with him. Great disappointment for this team that's been battling so hard with the development of an All-American car.
Yeah, but an excellent and important update, because the question that would immediately go up and down pit road is whether or not that problem developed as a result of the roughness or contact. Now that we know it's contact, the good news is that everybody else can breathe a little easier. It didn't beat the car to death running over rough sections of the course.
That's right, and of course, Scott Pruitt with that True Sports car, they really need a good result, and he was right there in the thick of that battle in that first group of 6 people. He maybe got a little bit anxious trying to make the move, wasn't enough room, and then there was contact. His day is done.
Out in front, Fittipaldi cycles around A.J. Foyt. Fittipaldi, the record-setting pole sitter here at Cleveland. For the first lap, Al Unser Jr. jumped in front, then Fittipaldi took it away from him, and now Al Unser Jr. has cycled backwards and has moved back to 4th place, where he's locked in a battle with Mario Andretti for 3rd place. Front of the field, the class of the field remains Fittipaldi, as Carl Haas tries to keep track of his drivers. Now from Jan Beekes.
Well, you're right, Paul. Fuel is not a problem here in the pits, as far as that's not the big buzzword here. What everyone's talking about is the track. In other words, that might change the strategy of the pit stops if they have to go full course yellow to clean this track. And I'm here in the Al Unser Jr. pit. They've had no reports of chassis problems right now, but of course he's got his hands full. Paul?
At the front, it's still Fittipaldi, and you see that the teammates now, with that battle with Mario Andretti, the little Al's been embroiled in, you saw it happening. Bobby Rahal, his teammate, has been able to move up. Now they're cycling past the 12 car right now, and Bobby Rahal, of course, he's a center of attention of Maury Crane, who is normally sitting up in the pits, but Maury had back surgery out in California last week, and so he's not here to cheer his driver on, but I'll bet she's sitting in the hospital right now with nurses saying, Mr. Cranes, please sit down. Quit cheering for him.
That's right. It's amazing how the adrenaline is probably flowing in that hospital bed just as fast as it is in Rahal's cockpit here. We do wish Maury well. We know he's had this back problem for quite some time, but let's hope it's all taken care of.
Finally, he's taking care of it. And here is Fittipaldi in front of the field, and some pretty hefty laps, averaging 134.9 miles an hour right now. 85 laps, the scheduled distance here. That's just a tick over 201 miles, 201.37 miles an hour. 5th place, Bobby Rahal. Braco's number 18. He makes his turn into the corner out the East Loop. Boy, take a look at this in the Quaker State onboard camera. Watch his hands.
also watch his helmet. Look the way it bobs and weaves when he goes over the bumps, right there. Notice he also uses a helmet strap. Again, an idea of just how fast a road racing circuit is, because that's normally the strap he uses for oval track racing.
Rahal now comes onto the pit straight as we'll just follow him around this section of the circuit. There he's on the pit straight now and closing down on that fight between Mario Andretti and Al Unser Jr. once again. Little Al's managed to pull back up and get at the back end of Andretti, and he's beginning to worry him.
Oh, this is definitely where the action is. Now, Mario has a nice little cushion here, but Al Jr. creeps up under braking. You see it here, but Mario has that car well set up. It's so difficult. You can catch somebody, but really to make the pass, you depend so much on the guy ahead of you making a little mistake. But the key to... Oh, see how much he closed up there. The key to winning is not making mistakes. But Al Jr. is quicker through all these twisty sections. We're inside his camera car now. Hits the apex. Look at Mario, goes right off the road. Kicks up some dust. Then you can hear Al Jr. get onto the power.
Jan Begas especially can help you with this kind of thing as we watch Shelley Unser keeping track of Al Unser Jr. in his role as a former racing instructor at the Russell School out at Laguna Seca. But there's a way that you really have to watch what happens on a road course. Sometimes you'll see one car's. We watch the battle for third, and little Al darts to the inside, but still can't do it as Mario sweeps across the front. You'll see the car behind appear to really suddenly close down on the car in front of it. That doesn't necessarily mean he's faster. It's just the first car is starting to brake, and the second car hasn't begun that cycle yet. What you have to look at is how they exit the corner, and if after they're back to acceleration the interval is in fact closer, then you truly know what's going on. We're watching the battle for third place. Fittipaldi at the front, Michael Andretti in second. Nothing changing there. Mario Andretti now trying to hold off a challenging, in fact, somewhat desperate Al Unser Jr. driving for Rick Gallis. Al Unser Jr. His last really good race occurred at the Long Beach Grand Prix, and he would desperately like to get up with a good result here today and pull himself back up into the points fight. Rest of the field on the pit straight now. Here comes the fight for third. There's Mario, the Kmart car. That bright red number 6. In fact, that's how you tell the difference between Michael's car and Mario's car. Red roll bar, red number.
Look at this. He's going to go down the inside. He is going to make the pass. He's fast enough this time.
As Mario Andretti stays on the outside. Whoa, almost cuts him right off the corner. Mario clips the brakes as Al goes out and uses a little extra section.
Now that's what you call closing the door, because Al Jr. was actually alongside. Mario said, I'm not going to have any of this. Slams the door shut, cuts right across in front of him, and I would think there was inches between the cars touching right there.
That's where you almost want to put, don't try this at home, because I'll tell you, it's only drivers of that caliber, and maybe there are only 12 of them in this field that can race that close together with one another.
That's right. It's really close racing. Great closing the door. What a lesson for people to learn. But Mario, one of the hardest men to pass. Now what happened was Al Unser Jr. got a very good run out of the last chicane, and we can take a look at that in replay and just see exactly how Mario closed the door. Here it is. Al Jr. comes down the inside now. I think he's right along beside him here. Has the apex, he thinks. Look what Mario does. Comes right across the outside. Right there. Almost clips Al Unser Jr. Says, no, I still have the corner. You've got to work a bit harder. And away they go. That's what you call close racing.
And in a normal circumstance, one would say, well, little Al has the line. Mario's going to be forced off and go slower. And Mario just says, nope, I'm going right through here no matter what. The battle for third continues. Mario Andretti occupies it now. Little Al is right behind him. And then his teammate, Bobby Rahal, sits back, running in 5th place. The leader is this car, number 5, Emerson Fittipaldi. Back at the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix, the Burke Lakefront Airport, the battle continues at 3rd place as Emerson Fittipaldi occupies the lead, followed by 2nd place Michael Andretti. Mario Andretti is in 3rd, but Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal have both closed down right behind, and not far back is Ari Leyendijk as well, trying to catch up to that pack. So there's a whale of a battle developing right here, and we're keeping an eye on it.
We are. Now, what happened there is Al Unser Jr. was a costly move trying to get by Mario, because by the time he gathered up his momentum again, he actually lost about 2 or 3 car lengths. It has taken him a lap and a half to pull away from Bobby Rahal, who was right behind him, and sneak back up towards Mario again.
Once again, Al Unser Jr. has closed in just behind Michael. And again, look how rough it is through there. And you get every now, wow, look how much Al closed up on that one. Can he hold that? No. Corner a little bit better for Michael, not much, but Boy, are they running close.
Okay, but he is very close. Now remember, this is the last chicane. It's exiting this corner that Al Unser Jr. is very strong, which puts him in a good position to challenge for turn 1. So let's wait and see, can he get close enough this time. Not sure he's close enough.
Al Unser Jr. tries the inside with Mario Andretti again. Decides, no, I have no chance with that one at all. Stays in line because he doesn't want to get caught offline too much. Now he continues his pursuit of Mario Andretti. The fight is still for third place. Fittipaldi has 4.2 seconds on Michael Andretti, who runs in second place. And then this fight is about 4 seconds behind Michael Andretti. So still, the front end of this field is very, very close. We're in the first quarter of this run here, and look at Little Al as he gives it a shot again. This time he may have it, and he does. Little Al gets past Mario Andretti, picks up third place. But that's only the second time he's managed that. Mario took it right back last time.
But this is where Al Jr. is quicker. This is turn 7. This is turn 8. Look at Rahal closes up on Mario, but Al Jr. pulls away about 3 car lengths. So Al Jr. is far enough away that Mario cannot counteract that move.
Quicker stayed on board camera on Bobby Rahal's car now, as he sits behind that fight and is now the man behind Mario Andretti. Al Unser Jr., by the nature of getting past Mario, now has a little bit clearer circuit running just ahead of him as he cycles down inside. And look at this. Look at Rahal as he tries Andretti. Now, will Andretti allow that? Well, they come around the corner. They both push off a bit. Whoa!
My word. Now, Mario tried to do the same thing, tried to keep the apex point, tried to keep the line, but Rahal forced the issue. Mario had no road left, so he had to use the grass, and Rahal makes a fantastic pass.
They're running around the 21 car. That's Didier Tays. Cosworth power here today, so you can see a difference in the power. Didier hoping for a good result as well, as now Tays becomes a factor in this battle, and Andretti has to wait just a moment until he can cycle through. Now we look out the back, the quicker state on-board camera from Bobby Rahal's car. That's Mario. He's now around Tays and trying to chase down Rahal.
And this really gives you a good impression of speed because of all the surface changes, the way he crisscrosses over that yellow line there, which is part of the taxiway, goes through the first S's here. You can even see here just how rough it is because the camera vibrates all the time.
All different forms of surface as you move from airport runway to taxiway to some of the asphalt strips that have been laid down to allow the cars to get from one of those surfaces to another. And that can wreak havoc on both tires and suspension. And of course the crews are watching both of those factors very carefully.
Sorry, we saw the dust kicked up. You mentioned that earlier on. When the outside tires go across that white patch, which they put down early this morning, it does kick up some dust. And that's what we spoke about earlier on, about the track giving problems and beginning to break up.
The number 18 Craco STP machine of Bobby Rahal. He runs in 4th place right now. He is the current PPG points leader. We spoke to him about the frustration of not yet winning a race this season.
To win, you've got to run up front. And we're running up front. We just haven't quite cleared that last hurdle. But you know, all I have to do is look at last race at Portland. You know, the Craco guys. You know, I passed 1 guy in the race. They got 3 guys for me. And when you have that working for you, then you've got, and the car is working well, and you're driving well. One of those days, everything's gonna mesh. And so based on that, no frustration yet. But 3 months from now, ask me that question.
Front of the order seems to have stabilized. Bobby Rahal now occupies 4th place alone. Fittipaldi is still the leader. Michael Andretti is in 2nd place. Al Unser Jr. is 3rd. Bobby Rahal 4th. Mario Andretti behind Rahal. 6th is Ari Leyendijk. 7th place, John Andretti. Rick Mears runs in 8th. Eddie Cheever is in 9th. Scott Brayton is in 10th. Down a little further in the order. Danny Sullivan 11th. Ted Trappis 12th. Mike Groff 13th. Buddy Lazier is 14th. Nice ride for Buddy. Didier Tays 15th. Jeff Andretti 16th. 17th is Tony Bettenhausen. Hiro Matsushita is 18th. And John Jones runs in 19th place right now. 2 cars so far out of the race. Scott Pruitt, you saw that. And now, we hate to report it, but Willie T. Ribbs, they had a problem there indicating with the engine of the car. And Willie T. might be having a problem. Look at John Andretti now with Rick Mears right behind him. Rain, every time we see this, has to do a little flip because John Andretti drives in the car that Rick had for so long with those Pennzoil colors. Now Rick Mears in number 3 turning over to the Marlboro colors for this season. And take a look at this little fight. Fight for 8th place.
Again, this is Chevrolet Power versus Cosworth, so I fully expect John Andretti to pull out and make the pass on Didier Thez. Didier lets him go, sees Rick. No, Rick doesn't squeeze through. That's a problem when lapping traffic. The driver that's being lapped sees the first car, but he doesn't always see the second one, so he cuts in as we saw Didier Thez do there. Then he moves wide and lets Rick get on with his battle with John.
So we take a look at the full field rundown after 20 laps here at the Burke Lakefront Airport, and we continue to watch the battle between John Andretti and Rick Mears. Mears, who was very good in the qualifying session early on, and in fact during the qualifying, Rick Mears and Fittipaldi had the top speeds through most of the session. Then the Newman-Haas team with Michael took a gamble. They really had the car running light on fuel, so light in fact that he ran out of fuel right after the timing line. And interestingly enough, the timing line here is well before the start-finish line. If they'd actually been timing at the start-finish line, Michael Andretti probably wouldn't be sitting on the front row for the start of this event. But Rick Mears, car number 3, as he cycles around now, and that's John Jones in the number 12 car. Emerson Fittipaldi runs the front of the field. Michael Andretti second. Al Unser Jr. is third. We'll be back with more from the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. Back at the Burke Lakefront Airport as Emerson Fittipaldi runs at the front of the field, cycles off of the runway and onto the taxiway, and if he had a full set of wings turned the other way, he'd be airborne right about now. Fittipaldi running at a tremendous pace of 135.3 miles an hour. But now we come to a most critical time in this event because we are in the window of pit stops, and with a long circuit, Derek, you can't make a mistake.
Oh, you absolutely cannot make a mistake. This is when you depend on everybody as a group, because when you come into the pit lane, as Ray Hall is now, we'll pick him up in a second, but the pit lane can win or lose the race for you.
So Fittipaldi should be due into the pits at any time. 5 of his 13 wins have come on temporary road circuits. 2 of those have been here. So we watch a 2-time champion at this particular event as he cycles along. Here is the Gallus Craco team making their first of what they hope to be 2 stops for Bobby Rahal. Seems to be just a bit early, but it also seems to be well within the window. He stops on lap 26, his lap 26. That should carry him all right, though they would really like to get a little bit further.
Nice clean pit stop for Rahal. Nobody in his way. He was the very first man to stop. He had a clear run all the way to his pit lane. In fact, there was nobody in when he was leaving.
The leader of the race, Emerson Fittipaldi, now on the pit lane, and Gary Gerald waits for him. Let's go to Gary.
Along with the Penske crew, we now see the nose of the car. Emerson hits those important marks right on target. Had to lock the brakes just a little bit. Car is quickly up. Eddie Cheever flashes by after his stop. They did not indicate that there would be any kind of a suspension or wing change. We don't see anything at this point. En routine, engaged gears. 14.5 seconds we get, Paul. An excellent stop for the Penske team and the race leader when he came in, Fittipaldi.
The crew chief, Rick Reineman, stepped out there after making those changes, took a look at his car as he pulled away. I'm sure what he was looking at was to take one final look at the back suspension as here comes Fittipaldi cycling in along inside Ari Leyendijk. And Rick Mears is in the pits, so the Penske team, you see Roger there in the background with his hand up, keeping track of Mears. Mears and Roger constantly on the 2-way radio. And Richard Buck says, okay, Rick, take it back into the fight as well. So Mears is back into the battle. Michael Andretti, for the moment at least, picks up the lead of the race.
Great pit stops by the Penske team. Remember, you can lose so much time just exiting this long pit lane because it's so long.
Here's the leader of the race. Jan Beekes is there.
The leader is in. Michael is keeping his streak alive of leading every race this season. He's radioed in saying he has a push. In other words, the front tires are sliding. Look for him to dive for the front wing. There it is. It's the front wing adjustment. It's going to put more downforce on the front of the car, which will haul it at the... And Gary is down at the other end. Gary?
Well, we're nearby, and it's Al Unser Jr. who is in for his first stop. Remember, this is a crew that had a disastrous fire at this facility a year ago. No obvious problems. Fuel gauge is disengaged. He's away in just over 14 seconds. We're seeing some scintillating stops in the heat at Cleveland.
So many of the leaders have made their stops now on board the Quaker State onboard camera. Al Unser Jr., as he comes off of the pit road and now for the very first time actually rejoins on the race course itself. So most of the leaders, Michael Andretti, Al Unser Jr., Mario Andretti, have all made stops and now hope to make just one more before this race is over.
These pit stops are almost scary because the speed these cars have to come down the pit lane. When we saw Emerson stop, we saw him lock up those front wheels, slide absolutely onto the correct spot. Now remember, if he doesn't hit the correct spot, the man with the fuel hose sometimes cannot get the fuel hose in. So it's critical that he stops exactly right and then leaves.
Here comes Mario Andretti into the pits. Jan Beekes.
Mario Andretti is in. He's getting the best fuel economy of the top runners so far. We'll have to see if that's going to change the outcome of the race. Again, more adjustments on the front wing, so he must have a very similar... No, Mario is saying, no, don't change that wing. I like how the car is. Now he's waiting for the fuel. It's off the jack, and he's out of here.
So much is conveyed in a very quick gesture. You saw it there. As they look down to the cockpit, Mario, with a few hand signals, tells exactly what he wants. Mario Andretti, whose last win in the IndyCars came here in 1988, comes back into the fight as well. He did have the lead until he came into that pit stop. So again, they cycle through. Everybody seemed to be within a window, though it seemed that Rahal was just a little bit early. Certainly Rahal was on the other side of the, or certainly Andretti, Mario, was on the other side of the window and seems to be really in excellent shape.
That's right. And it's amazing what happens here. The people came off the racetrack, stopped, got fully serviced, and everybody went back out in the same situation.
Look at this. These are some tires that just came off those cars. Looks like they've been rubbing up against something pretty hard. I wonder what caused that, Derek.
I'd like to know whose tire that is. Maybe Jan or Gary can go and find out, because I think that looks like it could have been contact.
Well, Jan Beekes has an update.
On this tire that you're looking at, it's the right front tire of Michael Andretti, and you can see he has made contact with another car. And looking at that very closely, he was lucky not to get a puncture on that tire. Paul?
Looks like some cord showing right through there. He must have gotten that up against something hard. Of course, the Goodyear Racing Radial is an amazing tire. And in this heat, operating today, oh, what a magnificent job it does. Not only in just staying round like it should, but giving these cars the acceleration and the braking that they need, especially on this surface. It's a tremendous challenge for the tire engineers here. So Mario Andretti, here's a look back to as he came out of the pit after that first stop.
This is one of the scary moments. Just look at the acceleration and look at that rubber he burns off those rear tires as he warms them up, which is good, and gets on a long, long way down that long pit lane. Remember, the pit lane here is the old part of the racetrack.
Mario Andretti, number 6. Kmart Haviland car. It has been 47 races since he has scored a win in the IndyCar. How great it would be if he could get to the front of the order and take the checkers. Now the CART safety team pulls out to the aid of the 15 car, the McKenzie machine of Scott Goodyear. He pulled off just by the edge of the course, not in any danger there, no indication of a major problem. But of course the car is not running, and they're going to have to figure out how to tow it in, hopefully get it back to the pits and get Scott Goodyear, who has had a pretty good streak of top 10 finishes going, back into the fight. The front of the field, Emerson Fittipaldi, after all the stop cycle too, still out in front by almost 3 seconds ahead of Michael Andretti. Al Unser Jr. with an excellent stop, and you saw it, picks up 3rd place. Bobby Rahal stopped early with a good stop, is in 4th place. Mario Andretti slides back into 5th. Ari Leyendijk up to 6th place. Rick Mears 7th, John Andretti 8th, Eddie Cheever 9th, and Scott Brayton is 10th.
And this looks like one of those races where you hope somebody makes a mistake. Emerson does not make many mistakes, and the most frustrating thing for Michael, who we're watching here, chasing him, is Michael can do perfect laps. We're inside his on his in-car camera here. He can do perfect laps, no mistakes, lap after lap after lap, and he doesn't even make up a 1/10 of a second. That makes for a very long and hard day's work.
We were watching Michael Andretti, his onboard camera there, for just a moment. Michael Andretti picked up the lead for 1 lap during that exchange of pit stops, and in doing so, Michael Andretti, as we watch the Quaker State onboard camera, has now led in all 8 races this year. And as a matter of fact, if you go down and look through the chart on laps led, Michael Andretti has led far more than anyone else by almost 2/3. But he just doesn't show that in the points. He's not been leading at the finish, but he is, after all, the only man this year to have won twice. Quaker State onboard camera, Michael Andretti works his way out through the East Loop. Very, very tough section of the course.
This, now, Paul, is the hardest section here. Watch his hand movements here.
is that he's not touching the clutch at any of those times, eh?
No, I don't think he changes. He doesn't use the clutch on his up changes. On his down changes, sometimes he does.
Well, the safety team's gotten Scott Goodyear back to the pits on a tow rope, so hopefully that crew will be able to go to work on the machine, get Scott Goodyear back into the fight. Hesitation in the Newman Haas pit for just a moment as to whether or not they might be calling one of the Andretti cars back in. We're looking at Arie Luyendyk, Rick Mears. This is a fight for 6th place. Arie Luyendyk has it at the moment as they come up behind Jeff Andretti. Jan Bikas has an update report.
Down here in the pits, especially in the Andretti pits, they jumped all over these tires afterwards because not only can we see weight adjustments when they come in, by changing the tire pressure here, every 1 pound in the tire is like changing the spring rate of the car by about 50 pounds. So they came and they checked all the tires, and then they got their calculators out and they figured out what they're going to use for the next stop. Paul?
Of course, the next stop hopefully is the last stop. If you do it right, this is a 2-stop race as we continue to watch the battle for 6th place between Luyendyk and Rick Mears. And, of course, that stop is critical in terms of making any suspension changes that you make, because you make them right, you make a faster car for that sprint run to the end of the race.
And hopefully you make them right. We're with Arie Luyendyk here, overcoming a bit of adversity, I would say, here from a driver's point of view because of the controversy surrounding the team. There was an owner, then there wasn't an owner. Now Vince Granatelli takes it over. But Arie Luyendyk is not in a good situation here from a driver's point of view because he has a lot of emotional decisions to make. And really, you don't need that type of distraction when you try and extract the maximum from yourself on race weekend.
And what was interesting is the crew chief on that car, Peter Parrott, said, you know, there is one advantage. Fewer decals, the aerodynamics are actually better. The little width of the decal can make a world of difference. He says the car is a little more slippery now, so maybe this is working out all right.
The only problem is the man who puts the decals on pays the bill.
Puts a few bucks into the situation. So Arie Luyendyk with a very bright car, number 9 here today. And I'll tell you, boy, what a great opportunity that would be for a sponsor to climb on a car that is lined 4th in the points. The heat here can be a real problem to these drivers. Decided to take a look at how some of them help keep cool. This track fact is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. Now, here's Gary Gerald.
Heat is always the enemy of a race driver, and there are various ways that drivers try to combat heat. Mike Groff has a cooling unit that's been adapted inside his helmet. It's very difficult to see, but there's a band in the inner shell that cuts right across the forehead, and also a similar band, about 1 inch wide, that runs all the way across the back. It's concealed inside the padding of the helmet, but you see this tube that comes out here. This is connected to this little hose right here, connected to this canister. And what you're seeing emitted here is a compressed liquid coolant. It pulses periodically into the hose and provides the cooling material inside the helmet. This canister is housed down on the nose of the cockpit, right between the driver's legs. It would appear to be a very tight fit and somewhat uncomfortable. The activation box where the driver controls how frequently it pulses the coolant is located right alongside him in the cockpit. What this does, you'll see that there are cooling vents for air that comes in and vents out the top of the helmet. But the actual cooling band that's built inside here is just like adding an ice pack to your forehead and one to the back of your head. It helps you keep your concentration sharp, keeps you mentally cool, and hopefully it makes you a much more efficient race driver in the heat.
Back at the Burke Lakefront Airport, the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix, Michael Andretti has closed in on Emerson Fittipaldi and now is beginning to challenge. They come to a chicane just before the pit straight, and Michael Andretti is right there.
Now remember, we saw him put 2 turns of front wing in this car during that pit stop. It obviously is working because he has clawed his way up behind Emerson. And in fact, he has made a couple of challenges to try and get down the inside. He's not quite close enough yet, but great in-car camera shots here of our second place man trying to catch this man, Emerson Fittipaldi.
Emerson Fittipaldi's last lap was 2 seconds slower than the average he'd been running. And here comes Michael. Look at Michael cook the brakes as he gets wide, and Michael loses an advantage there. He misjudged the corner and got hot on the brakes.
Oh, he did. He locked up those front brakes. Luckily, he didn't get onto the grass. There's so much room here. His wife Sandy looks on. She can see everything that happens from her pit vantage point. But Michael overcooked the brakes there, went a little bit too wide, and was lucky to get away with it. He didn't get on the grass.
Before I have a very angry Michael Andretti coming after me at the end of this race, is it possible that what he got on was some of the marbles from the breakup in that corner?
Well, we mentioned that earlier on. That is one of the areas of the racetrack that we have had problems. That's where you see the white patches. If you do get a little bit wide there, you run across the marbles, and suddenly your grip is cut in half. That could have been what happened to Michael, but boy, did he close up fast on Emerson.
Looked like he had Fittipaldi in a fight for the lead in that corner. And then into the corner, quick stab of the brakes, one that took him a little too wide, and you see the advantage that it has given to Fittipaldi once again. We'll have an opportunity to take a look at this one more time. There's Fittipaldi.
Now he's leading. Michael is a good 3 or 4 car lengths behind him, but he makes a very brave effort to try and get down the inside. Look at that right front wheel, locked up, loses the steering, out into the gray. Look at the dust gets kicked up, catches the car, gets a little bit sideways, and just keeps it off the grass. But boy, that mistake cost him about 6 or 7 car lengths.
Been a marvelous piece of driving to catch the car and get it back on the line. Let's get an update from Gary Gerald.
Paul, the Penske crew for Emerson Fittipaldi believes that he may have missed a gear in that situation, allowing Michael Andretti to close so quickly. There does not seem to be any other great concern here as they watch from their vantage point on pit wall.
Well, that would explain, Gary, the time difference that we saw on the lap where Michael actually caught up, because he caught up very, very quickly in the first corner. And having missed a gear would certainly explain that. And the gears, like the other suspension components in the back end of the car, are something you have to be so very careful of here because of the incredibly rough surface at the transition points between taxiways and runway. Jan Vigas just checked in with the Andretti organization, who says that there's no problem with the brakes on Michael's car. So the race continues as we take a look at the Pioneer Race recap. After 35 laps in this run, we've had no full course cautions, and Fittipaldi is setting a blistering pace of 133.5 miles an hour. Now try this one out. Danny Sullivan's track record on this course, this is the second year of this particular course, his race record here from last year is 112 miles an hour. Fittipaldi's now averaging 133.
It's an incredible run, really. Remember, this is the Penske car. They design a new car for every year, and it's just a little bit better, and little bits being better in 3 or 4 different areas really gives you a big advantage. But remember, there's a long way to go yet, and what really slows down average speed is yellow flag situation.
And in fairness to Danny Sullivan's last year run, had a lengthy full course yellow that they've not seen here today. 15 laps of full course yellow last year. Part of that owing to that pit fire with the Al Unser Jr. car that took him out of the lead of the race.
As we watch Emerson, he is one of those drivers that almost hits the same spot every single time. Every time we come to look at him, he drives over the same piece of road all the time. That's what I said about earlier on. He's very consistent and very seldom makes a mistake, which gives everybody a hard day's job just to try and catch up.
Fittipaldi up now behind Hiro Matsushita as he cycles through some traffic, and Michael Andretti is just behind. The 2 leading cars, Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti, are a full 15 seconds ahead of the 3rd place car, Al Unser Jr. We talked about wing adjustments. You saw some of them happen. For a further update, let's get a briefing from Jan Vigas.
Down here, Derek was just talking about that wing adjustment may have been what made the change to Michael's car. Let's show you what happened when they turned that. They came in and turned this right here. What that does is raise that flap a little, giving some more downforce to the front, holding the whole front of the car down. Now, just in case you're interested, this whole spare nose piece that's sitting here costs a cool $20,000. Paul?
No problem. That's maybe 6 cars in my garage right now. $20,000. John Jones, the Canadian, being reported out of the race now with an engine problem. So 3 cars out. John Jones, Willie T. Ribbs, and Scott Pruitt. Fittipaldi at 134 miles an hour now as he kicks the speed up a bit, is the leader of the race. But boy, look at the interval close down as Fittipaldi continues in the fight. We'll be back with more from the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. Emerson Fittipaldi bounces his way around the Burke Lakefront Airport with about a half a second lead on Michael Andretti now. The surface of this track are a concern to everyone, especially the leader Fittipaldi. We asked him about the bumps and about the track's effect upon these race cars.
It's very rough, but they improve. like the chicane before the start-finish line. But I think that's one of the key things here is to adjust the mechanical suspension, the right aerodynamic, follow the bumps, follow the ondulation of the track, and get the right frequency on the suspension. I think that's the key to the quick here.
So Emerson Fittipaldi, what he's commenting about when he says it's better is remember that this course was changed last year. They took a little chicane, actually 2 turns out of it after they had some problems with that section breaking up last year, and made this wonderfully long straightaway on the pit straight that we see, and it makes for that very wide first turn. That's taken some of the bumps out of it, but still, when you're only coming in for 2 days of the year, it adds an extra challenge, which these race cars respond well.
It really does, and it was quite by accident, literally an accident with Ari Lyondike when he hit the wall last year, that they reconfigured this racetrack, and it really is much better, much more liked by all the drivers, and as you say, less bumpy, and a much better racetrack. You can race into turn 1 now, as opposed to what you had before.
Fittipaldi with Michael Andretti in the number 2 Kmart car just behind him. Still time to close in, and very, very close as we continue to watch the fight at the front of the field. Al Unser Jr. We take a look in the Quaker State onboard camera. Nice clear run in front of him. Al Unser Jr. looking superlative here today, especially compared to some of the runs he's had recently. He really not only wants but needs to get back up into the top of the order and run as well as he can if he's going to pick up some points and challenge his teammate Bobby Rahal, who is the current points leader.
And you know it's a hot day when Al Unser Jr. uses that little air intake tube on the right side of his cockpit there. It takes air from outside the car over his shoulder, and he sticks it down into his uniform, which puts cool air over his chest.
All right, let's go down to the pits now. Get an update from Gary Gerald.
Now we've intercepted Scott Goodyear, whose day was unfortunately too short. It seemed to be electronics that puts him out. Scott, a lot of people wondering, how tough is it? We know it's hot. We know it's bumpy. The repairs that were made on the course, how slippery, how treacherous?
Well, at the very beginning, it didn't seem too bad at all. But as the race progresses, there seems to be more and more marbles, and it's almost becoming like a path in the snow that you have to make sure that you're on. It's very hard to pass. Right now, we had some problems with our Mackenzie car and the electrical system. We came in and out a few times. It knocked us out of the top 10, so we're done for the day.
It sounds like the conditions you're talking about mean a driver who wins this race is going to have to exercise great patience. You can't get too much out of the car.
Well, patience, and you have to be very cautious of the track because of all the surface marbles. And the track is being torn up right now, so it's very cautious. And for them to get around lap traffic, it's going to have to be patience and expertise.
We appreciate your insight. Thanks.
Okay.
Paul?
Quaker State onboard camera, Michael Andretti, second place, and you got to watch a little bit of it as this battle for the lead heats up once again. Michael is trying to worry and trying to worry Fittipaldi right out of the lead, and he's doing a pretty good job of it. He is really on top of Fittipaldi.
He really is, and under braking in particular for turn 3, that long braking right-hander, we saw him close up an enormous amount on Fittipaldi. Now, Fittipaldi will know that because he sees Michael coming in his mirrors, but what Michael says is, this is where I think I can make a move. I've got to get close, though, down to turn 1. This is turn 1 here. He's got to be close here if he intends to make a pass after turn 2 into turn 3.
And Didier Tays that sets just ahead of the fight as Fittipaldi with Michael Andretti right behind him coming to the faster section of the course along the lakeside straight. And Fittipaldi cycles under Tays, and Michael quite wisely says this is not a place to try at this moment. Now in the portion of the circuit that Michael seems to have his best run, he comes up behind Tays and comes past him, and the fight's at it again.
Oh, the fight is at it again. Emerson cannot afford to put a wheel wrong here because Michael will pounce. Michael is driving the wheels off that Kmart car, but Emerson is just that little bit ahead of him all the time. A frustrating situation, but Michael's the type of driver that if half a chance comes his way, he's going to grab it as hard as he can. That's what we saw earlier on when he locked those front wheels.
They come off the furthest east point on this, the Burke Lakefront Airport, heading back toward the pits now, passing the pit entrance onto the pit straight. Michael Andretti still in pursuit with no other factors right now at the front of the field. And there is Michael closing down just a little bit more on Fittipaldi. In fact, he picked up about a half a second in that lap. Fittipaldi, of course, having to handle some traffic. Michael handled it in a different way, and that can make a world of difference. But Fittipaldi still at the front of this field as we approach the 50th lap of this race, scheduled for an 85-lap distance, 201 0.37 miles in the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix.
Two very evenly matched cars here for sheer pace and speed, but Michael, I don't think, has quite the pace of Emerson. That's why he seems to be playing catch-up all the time. Michael needs some help from traffic if he's to close in on Emerson. Oh, Rick Mears is in trouble.
Rick Mears on the pit road, but very, very slow, and certainly you don't want to make a pit stop at this point in the race. Rick Mears doesn't even look like it's under power. One of the reports was, look at the left rear. That's the report.
Yeah.
He brushed that wall coming off of the east loop. He certainly got up against something fairly hard.
There's only one wall to hit here, Paul, and it's coming off turn 8, and that's where we see Rick running very slowly from that turn 8 situation. But that left rear suspension is broken. I would doubt very much if they will fix that. Just look at that left rear wheel. It's almost hanging off that car. I'd be surprised if they can get that fixed.
Gary Gerald's right there, Gary.
In our first look at it, we can see that there was definite contact on that left rear, and they'll now try to pull it off, but it looks like the suspension parts, well, we can see damage here, and even with our untrained eye at the rear, this is going to be a long stop, and we can see now that one of the lower wishbones is definitely bent. I can't imagine that he'll be able to continue, Paul.
Boy, what a devastating development for Rick Mears, who came into this race with 76 points, second behind Bobby Rahal. Now, if he falls out at this point, well, there are no points at all, and he will fall well down in the order. One has to ask what's going through Roger Penske's mind, because Richard Buck and that crew could, in fact, go to work on that car and try and keep it somewhere in the fight, just hoping for some points, but it doesn't seem likely. We take a look again to the front of the field. Michael still trying to close down on Fittipaldi. That is John Andretti in the number 4 Pennzoil car, sitting just ahead, though not ahead in the order. John Andretti is well down in the fight, running in 7th place right now, a lap behind the leaders and about to go 2 down. On board, the Quaker State onboard camera, Michael Andretti. Emerson Fittipaldi is out in front. We'll be back. Back at the Burke Lakefront Airport. Goodyear blimp high overhead, giving you some great shots of this course. 1921 brings the Spirit of Akron, the name of that airship, piloted by Drew Marshall. Here over the lakeshore at Cleveland, and there is the battle for the lead as you see it from the blimp, and look at these two fight.
Oh, Michael's going to go down the inside. Yes, he does have the move. He got down inside Emerson. Emerson had no choice, but now watch the run to the next 2 turns.
Look at Emerson right back to the front. Michael very effectively used Cousin John to create a little blocking maneuver for him. But look at Michael. Michael's coming back around Fittipaldi. And this is the section where Michael is faster. Now Michael is out to the front of the field, and Fittipaldi is in pursuit. John Andretti is staying right with him.
And what a display from Michael. And we've seen Al Jr. do that earlier on with Mario. Slides down the inside of the hairpin, but you got to slow the car down too much. Emerson got back inside, and then Michael does it again. Now Michael is very fast through here, so he hopes to pull out a couple of car lengths. What a great maneuver to catch Emerson, to stalk him for so long, and then take the opportunity when it came.
So much of racing is not just going fast. It's also knowing how to play the traffic. That's prevalent on an oval, but you see it so much in road racing now, especially with a guy as moxie as Michael tends to be. Boy, he played that one well.
So well, and we said earlier, Michael needs traffic. Now, the roles are reversed. Now, Emerson will be looking ahead of him, ahead of Michael, to see what traffic he can take full advantage of.
Now, John Andretti was running 7th. We said it ran 1 lap down at the time they caught him. So, John Andretti is right there in the fight, though falling a bit behind, but it's interesting that number 4 Pennzoil car stayed pretty much on the pace that the leaders are running.
It really is, and after the early success that John had in Australia, really you haven't heard much about him in the race since then. But what they have been doing is quietly going about their business, getting good race mileage and experience. Remember, this is a very new young team, and they've had considerable success immediately. Now they're in the learning curve, as I call it.
All right, in the pits, Rick Mears out of the car. Is he out of the race? Here's Gary Gerald.
And, Paul, we have him now getting ahead on, and he's doing a quick radio interview at this point. We'll hang on, and we'll get a word here. We'll come back down when he's available.
All right, Rick Mears. Boy, what a devastating position on the points this is going to have for Mears' car in the Penske team, the front of the field. It is Michael Andretti now. Fittipaldi relegated to the 2nd place role, and Fittipaldi tried to catch up. Here it was the pass, Derek Daly.
Michael got a great run off turns 9 and 10. He gets down inside Emerson, but now He's under braking. He can't quite make the turn. Look what Emerson does. Turns inside him. He's on the power. Emerson's on the power now. Gets inside Michael. Look at Michael slide wide. Look at that slide wide, almost onto the grass. But Emerson is a full car length ahead. But you know what happens? Michael then comes back down the inside in his favorite out-braking position. Slides down the inside again. We'll see it right here. And takes the position back.
And is what happened there is that the exit speed that Michael had, because he had the nicer swooping line out, that was a better speed for him?
Well, I think it was sheer bravery that he actually made the move, because he had so much room to get down on the inside braking for turn 3. And remember, that was the one that he gobbled up Emerson so many times before. So he had confidence that he could actually pull it off.
Sometimes it's technique, sometimes it's bravery. Let's go back to Gary Gerald.
And Rick now available. Obvious disappointment. What resulted in the contact, Rick?
Well, I just made a mistake, basically. I blew the corner, got in a little hard, and I dropped the right front end close on the apron to try to hook it underneath and hold the front end. I had a little bit fighting a bit of an understeer. When I did that, it hit a bump and bounced the front end out because of dropping a wheel off on the inside, and that put me out into the marbles, and there was no hanging on from there. Just just made a mistake, got it out of line.
These are tough conditions because of the breakup around at various points in the track, aren't they?
Well, it is tough, but I'm supposed to get off line. It's okay if you stay on line. I got off line. That's the problem.
How devastating to the points hunt is this?
Well, it's devastating. Obviously, I don't know where it's going to end up. We've got to see where everybody else finishes, and that's what I feel bad about. The guys did a tremendous job on a Marlboro car. They've been doing a tremendous job all year long, keeping the reliability and everything, and then I put them out.
All right, we go back up to Paul. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Rick Mears out of the fight, and as he suggested, will have a terrible effect upon the overall points battle. Michael Andretti leads this race, but consider this. Michael hasn't finished a race here at Cleveland since 1987. He can lead. He's had his problems going the distance. And here's Bobby Rahal coming in to make a stop from 4th place. Jan Vikas.
Our current points leader is in. He grabs the water. Of course, the way these guys are running, they're going to be sucking up the water during this race. It's very, very hot down here in the pits. Everybody looks pretty calm, pretty routine pit stop. Bobby's just waiting for fuel. It's in gear. He's out of here.
And Bobby Rahal rolls back into the fight on lap number 56. Now, Derek, we've got to do a computation for that car. Michael's got a problem. Michael with a problem. Looked like he got over against. Comes back to speed. No.
I think he's in good shape. Actually, what he does, he has a very unusual line coming off that last turn 8. And what he does, he comes off the corner right against the wall. Then he turns right because he gets out of that very bumpy area. That's why it looks such an unusual line.
Fittipaldi's in. Here's Gary Gerald.
And once again, Emerson right on target as he hits the marks for what he hopes will be his final stop. This time he didn't have to lock the brakes. They've already completed the tire change. Now they bolt down the left rear, waiting to bring the fuel hoses out off the jack. 14.8 seconds. Another great stop for this Penske team servicing Emerson Fittipaldi.
Fittipaldi on lap 57 makes his stop and goes back into the fight. The lone hope of the Penske team right now as Fittipaldi goes back into the action. The leader of the race is still Michael Andretti. We'll be back with more from the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. Leader of the race, Michael Andretti, on pit road, rolls in for a stop. Here's Jan Vikas.
Michael Andretti bringing it to a stop. He's reaching for the water, getting that. We don't expect any changes here on the wings this time. It's going to be done just with tire pressures. Michael pretty much was very pleased with the earlier changes, just hoping to get in and out as quickly as possible. He's just waiting for fuel. Let's wait and see. Seems a little longer than normal. It's the air jack stuck just a little bit. And Gary, go ahead.
Yes, indeed. Little Al Unser is right in as Michael speeds away from his pit. This was the second stop last year where they had the problem with fire. This crew efficiently working. They say they want a yellow. They're running as fast as the leaders. They got behind a bit early. Now they'll have to try to make it up on the racetrack. Now, wait a minute. Is there a problem at the rear? No, we got a problem here at the left front. They've gone for another air gun. Oh, my. The little problems that have plagued this team this year have again resurfaced. They're now nearing 30 seconds on the stop. There he goes. We've got him at 29 seconds. There was a problem with a gun on the left front that kept him in the pit twice as long as usual.
And for about 150 feet, Al Unser Jr. was the leader of the race as he flashed past Michael Andretti. And as Michael came out, Emerson Fittipaldi was on the pit straight. But Fittipaldi was not able to catch Michael Andretti as they came off the stop. Michael Andretti is still the leader of the race.
My word, the scary time we mentioned earlier on. It's incredible when something goes wrong, like an air gun like that. panic almost sets in, but these guys are trained to actually slow down a little bit. Do your job as cleanly as you can, because if you lose 10 seconds, it's better than losing 50 seconds by making another mistake.
Quicker State onboard camera, Al Unser Jr. Not only do they train for the good stop, they in fact train for the one when there's a problem. They knew that if that one air wrench went bad, exactly where they get the backup from. It's just like setting the starter engine over the car always. They'll set it over the wall in case the engine stalls. They're always prepared for every eventuality. That's what makes them so good.
That's right, a good backup situation. But Michael had a great stop. No changes to the car. It's always a good sign. It means he's happy with the handling. So Emerson now has to give chase.
And he comes out a good 4.5 seconds ahead of Emerson Fittipaldi. So Michael Andretti is still running at the front. The question is, can he finish here? It's been very difficult for him in the past. But Michael Andretti, for the moment, in the Kmart Havlin car, is running at the front of this field. In second place, it's Fittipaldi. Third place is Mario Andretti. And fourth place is Bobby Rahal. Al Unser Jr. runs in fifth. We'll be back with more from the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix right after this. Lyondike is still holding his own, running in sixth. John Andretti is in seventh. Mario, Ari, and John are all a lap down. 2 laps down in eighth place, Scott Brayton, then Danny Sullivan, Eddie Cheever, Mike Croft. Tony Bettenhausen runs in 12th, 3 laps down. Then Buddy Lazier, Didier Tays, Hiro Masusta, Jeff Andretti. Rick Mears is out of the race now, so that gives you a pretty good idea of the order to this point. Scott Pruitt fell out early. Willie T. Ribbs fell out with an oil pressure problem. Too bad, because he's got some tremendous support from San Jose, California. And all the people out there, they put a nice press together for him to try and help with it. Here is Danny Sullivan, the Alpha-powered machine, as he comes into the pits. They've carried that car all the way to the 63rd lap. But while on one hand, it's not the kind of power you want, it's got some of the fuel economy you might need.
That's right. Very much a development program. We know that as Danny Sullivan leaves, burns those rear tires again. They spent some time recently down at Sebring in Florida testing specifically for Cleveland here. Danny Sullivan was very pleased with the development they did down there. But again, it's an uphill battle because they haven't quite got to the level they need to be competitive.
But still, they're working away on it. It takes a while to get competitive in the Indy cars, and they've indicated that they're going to stay with the battle. There was some speculation that they wouldn't be here at the end of this year, and they say not so. We're sticking with this fight in the Indy cars. So Danny Sullivan in the Miller car doing everything he can to get up to the front of the order. So the complexion of the race has gone back and forth. On the start of the race, it was Al Unser Jr. that jumped the start with a great move, perfectly legal move. Moved up, took the lead. Right away, it was taken away by Fittipaldi. Battle developed between Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti for most of the run. And then just before these pit stops, Michael was able to get ahead of Emerson Fittipaldi. The Newman Haas team making a spectacularly good stop for Michael as he came in and kept him in the lead of the race. And that's when the pit crews are so critical, especially here on a road course. There's very little chance for any mistake at all. And when you're running 180 miles an hour or so, well, a 1 second mistake in a pit stop, that could cost you about 200 yards on the racetrack. Michael Andretti, he's out in front. Michael has actually won 2 of the last 3 races, elevating himself to 3rd place now in the PPG point standings. We ask him, what are his plans, his strategy for the rest of the season?
Watching it every step of the way. I was watching at the beginning of the year, and when we gave away all those points at the beginning, I knew it was going to be tough. And so, you know, we're counting every single point. That's why we went to pole so bad, because that's worth 1 point. So, you know, we're watching it. And, you know, if we can't win, hopefully we can keep the car running and just, you know, collect points. And that's the plan the rest of the year.
Michael Andretti, boy, is he driving the tail off of that thing. Do you see him come off that corner?
Very few people drive as hard every single lap as Michael does. And of course, what a lot of people are interested in now is what's happening with his Formula One aspirations. His 2 tests so far were washed out with McLaren, but he is going back to Silverstone in England early in August to do a 3rd test. And he told me earlier today he needs to know what McLaren's plans are for him very soon after that test.
So Michael, what will he do next year? And can he score a championship in the Indy cars before he heads off to Formula One, if that's what he wants? The front of the order, the moment, it's Michael. You ride down the home stretch. with the leader of the race, Michael Andretti, and this Quaker State onboard camera looking just over his right shoulder. Now he turns to the north and begins to cycle back as he continues to roll along on the runway here. There you see Michael in his office at work. And right now, he's doing a marvelous job because he is out in front of this field, having finally taken the lead away from Emerson Fittipaldi, and now moving nearly 5 seconds in front of the second-place car of Fittipaldi. Now we get an opportunity to take a look at him as he makes a lap here, Derek.
Watch his arm movements here. Look at this. Look how fast the arms move. And he'll do it again here when he's going to turn right. Just here, look at the arm movements trying to keep this car exactly where he wants it on the racetrack. The bumps and the sheer strength you need to turn that steering wheel is what makes those arm movements look so violent.
And when you talk about a race driver as an athlete, you think about the temperature here today in the cockpit, probably nearing 120 degrees for Michael Andretti. And when they talk about, well, we've got an indication now, and there it is, the pace car is coming out. We're going to go to a full course yellow, apparently because the track has begun to break up just a bit. And that car, in there, is the chief steward of the series, Wally Dallenbach. Maybe Gary Gerald can give us a little further update.
Paul, indeed we can. We see the crowd standing in the bleachers. They're wanting to know what's going on. I think we have the answer because we saw Billy Camphausen, one of the hardworking CART officials, going crew to crew. We were trying to find out what was going on. Drivers are complaining about track conditions. Those marbles that we heard Scott Goodyear talk about, Rick Mears talk about. It's tough. Emerson Fittipaldi was told by his crew on the radio, and in one word, he said conditions are bad. We think that's why we're getting the yellow now. They may have to go out and sweep the track, as we've seen in years past at Portland and once here at Cleveland, trying to get it in better shape for the final laps of this race.
Well, we got an idea of it there, Gary, while you were talking. As the full course yellow is out and the course marshals begin to signal all the cars to slow down, get behind the pace car. A couple of shots we saw, that course is really, well, there's one of them. Look at all of the debris, not just on the outside of the line, but actually in the line. The drivers are kicking it up. It makes the car a little unstable in the corner, but it also means that debris like that's getting picked up by these very sticky tires and flung backwards into the car behind him. So this is the problem they face here. It's the one that we mentioned just a little bit earlier. They'll have to evaluate this situation and decide what it is that they're going to do. Certainly, for the moment, they're full course yellow, and they're going to clean this race course. We'll be back with more from the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix as Al Unser Jr. visor up, motors around. They're out now trying to scrub this racetrack clean. What about Michael Andretti? Let's get an update from Jan Beekes.
Michael has just called in on the radio and said the conditions are terrible, and he almost crashed a couple of times. They called over the CART officials, the crew did, that is, and they said, the track's really getting bad. Isn't there any way we can stop the race? The crew's always trying to find a way to get that victory early. Paul?
Oh, in other words, what Michael would love to see is, wow, this is terrible out here. I think we ought to flag it right now, especially since I'm in front.
Go down to Emerson's pit and see what they say. They'll say, no, let's keep this thing going.
We'll go a little longer. That was Wally Dallenbach, the chief steward of the series. See him pull up in one of the PPG safety vehicles there, as he is personally out on the circuit now, though still in radio contact with his race control, trying to keep track of what's going on here as we look down from the Goodyear blimp, the Spirit of Akron, as these cameras from overhead, there it is, floating in a very hot July afternoon sky and keeping us appraised of some of the intervals between these cars. Not just a big advertisement up there, it really helps in the coverage of motorsports. Shots like that as the field now slowing down, lining up, and you can see the course workers working on those lines, trying to get this course just as clean as they can.
When people ask about the groove in a racetrack, there's a great shot of what they call the groove. The groove is laid down by the tires, cars running over the same spot of road all the time. It eventually gets very black, and that's what the race drivers refer to as the groove.
So the race is slowed under a full course yellow, and that's going to have an adverse effect on any potential race record they had. Here is Michael Andretti. He talked about the trouble he was having. Whoa!
Oh, can you believe he got away with that? Puts the two outside. He's still in the gray right here. Look, he's about a full car width out of the... Oh, he almost hits the wall.
I'll tell you what, nifty piece of driving. That car was sliding over the marbles on the approach to the corner, and he actually was out of control for two full corners there. So Michael Andretti is the leader of the field, right behind the PPG pace car. They'll try to get the course clean and get this race restarted just as fast as they can. yellow here at the Burke Lakefront Airport as they still try to get this course clean. Let's go down for some updates. First, Gary Gerald.
There's concerns other than the track conditions, Paul. Funny how these things happen in racing. But Barry Green and the crew for Bobby Rahal, they're wanting to know what's the situation with Mario Andretti. Came into the pits. Apparently there was a wing adjustment, a very quick stop, then back out. They think that he gained some positions under the course of the yellow. They want a clarification. They've called a couple of CART officials over. They're working on that situation, they being the officials. We haven't heard a definitive answer just yet. Let's now check in further up pit road with Jan Beekes.
Well, I may have that answer for you, Gary, because I am here in the Mario pit, and they said, yeah, he came in for a wing adjustment. He needed a change on the car, and he got down the pits quick, and he did improve position, very similar to what happened to Rick Mears last year at Nazareth. Paul?
I think there is a legitimate question, though, on the blend line. It looks like Mario may have picked up 2 positions. There he is, sitting outside of Al Unser Jr. And the rule is simply that he has to be back in the position that he should be in by the time the green flag comes out. But there still seems to be a little bit of an argument of where he ought to be.
What we have here is he knows he should be behind Rahal. He moved back. But Al Jr. thinks he should be behind him also. So look, he's tucked right in behind Rahal, trying to make it as difficult for Mario as possible to blend in.
So a bit of an argument on the circuit there as Mario Andretti tries to find the right place in the lineup. And Al Unser Jr., of course, like any driver, is going to say, I'm pretty sure, Mario, it's just behind me. The Pioneer race recap here after 70 laps. Michael Andretti still the leader. We've now found ourselves in our very first full course caution, the only one of the day, and that is because of the debris being kicked up by these cars on the racetrack. They anticipated there might be a problem, and it has in fact come to pass. So the field now with an average speed falling rapidly of 128.6 miles an hour, but still pretty good record. Last year's run here was at 112 miles an hour. Behind the pace car, they still clean up sections of the circuit. We hope to get going again just as soon as fast as we can. Down on the course, the yellow is about to come to an end. The course is as clean as they can get it. That's Michael Andretti in front of the field. Buddy Lazier, who is, of course, not in the fight for the lead, he actually runs in 12th place right now, off the pace of the leaders, is between Michael Andretti and Emerson Fittipaldi. So Fittipaldi certainly has his work cut out for him. We'll see how he moves up. And then right behind them yet, Derek, another battle.
That's right. The second battle we're going to try and keep an eye on as they come down to the first turn is the Al Jr., Mario Andretti, and Bobby Rahal battle.
As they come onto the pit straight now, the green flag flies again from Nick Finaro, and it will be an 11-lap sprint to the finish here as they're on their way. And look how fast Fittipaldi comes around Lazier, looking back to see. And wow, Scott Brayton almost catches the back end of Eddie Cheever's car. And at the same time, here comes Rahal trying to move inside Jeff Andretti and catch up to his teammate. At the front of the field, Fittipaldi closes in on Michael Andretti. And Michael is taking these corners with some caution. He's very careful through these first corners. I think he wants to know how good a job they really did on that surface.
That's right. And remember, he's the first man through at speed. So Emerson can see what's happening to Michael, so he can actually take more chances. But believe me, Michael will use everything that's available here. It's going to be a hard job for Emerson to make a pass.
Michael Andretti at the front of the field. You look down from the Goodyear blimp, and Fittipaldi on the corner closes in just a little bit, but you can see both of them still fighting a very uncertain surface.
Oh, Michael absolutely fighting an oversteer condition. We see him under heavy braking here for the last chicane. That's turns 9 and 10, and accelerates in through the groove there. That's that black groove we spoke about earlier on. But Emerson is right there.
Very wide first corner as Emerson Fittipaldi closes in. He doesn't have the help of his wife, Teresa Fittipaldi, here today. She is still at home expecting a baby. I said to Emma, she's been expecting it for 2 weeks. She says, I know. So Fittipaldi, Teresa, Emma may need you here to a little extra help. As out in front, Michael Andretti, but Fittipaldi very definitely closing in.
Very definitely filling the mirrors. Probably 5 or 6 car lengths. This is the most difficult part of the racetrack here. The long left-hander. Now this 3 right-hand section. Sandy looks on, has the stopwatch in her hand, watches every move he makes, times the gap all the time. Every time Michael goes by, she times how far behind Emerson is, so they know exactly what's happening, whether he closes or whether he pulls away.
We keep our focus on the front of the field. Now we move back. Mario Andretti and Al Unser Jr. Just ahead of them is Bobby Rahal, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, running together on the circuit. Rahal was able to get into third place coming off of this yellow. Then they have a separation there. There you see Scott Brayton's car. And with a very quick move to the inside, Lyondike was trying to get past John Andretti. But right together on the circuit, too, third, fourth, and fifth, Rahal, Alan Unser Jr., and Mario Andretti as they fight. And, of course, there's some other interested participants. Lyondike runs in sixth place, and he's sitting just behind Mario Andretti. Scott Brayton is actually in eighth place, but he's 2 laps off of the pace.
That's right. The yellow flag really has put everything up for grabs here. It bunched everybody up together, and really the race has come down to this last 10-lap sprint. You can make up a lot of places if you can get things to go your way here. Scott Brayton, though, now stands between Mario and Little Al.
And as Michael Andretti roars for the flag, it will be 8 laps to go next time by here in the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. And there is the front of the field. There is Michael as he nails the throttle, tries to push it through the floor because he knows that Fittipaldi is right there.
No question of fuel. If ever there was a question, that long yellow flag situation negates any fuel problems because I don't use any when I run so slowly under yellow flag. I use very little. But look at Emerson. Closes right up on Michael. This is turn 1. Look at Michael, though, slides all the way out onto the grass with that left rear wheel.
Michael Andretti trying to pick up as much of an interval as he can in the sections of the circuit in which he works well. This surface, remember, is better because it's a little bit cleaner, but it's certainly not ideal. And the problems that they experience could, in fact, happen again. Don't forget the U.S. Olympic Festival coming up from Los Angeles, starting on the 13th of July. Check your local listings. Should be a great day, in fact, a great week in sports there here on ESPN. The battle still at the front. Fittipaldi is right there, the number 5 Marlboro machine, as he continues to challenge. Roger Penske, of course, has shifted his attention along with his driver, Rick Mears, who are both now spectators watching as the other Penske car, being very carefully handled by Chuck Sprague, is trying to chase down Michael Andretti. And they are, in fact, right together.
What a great job Michael has done. We saw him off the road earlier.
Oh, and John Andretti. Yellow's come out. John Andretti's caught the wall.
Well, he's right on the racing line, too, so that will be a major problem. That could cause a full course yellow.
They display that yellow and red flag, which is a course condition flag. It tells you there is a slippery surface, and that's a pretty good wallop to the wall they caught there. Now the question is, there's John getting out, thank goodness.
Now this is the same wall that Rick Mears hit earlier on. We will be able to have a look at the replay. This is turn 8, coming off turn 8.
Let's see what happened here, Derek.
There's John, he's out in the gray, and then he just literally loses traction, bang, very hard into that outside wall, tears both their left side suspensions off. But John Andretti looked as if he pushed out of the groove first, because when he gets into the gray, he has very little grip.
There's that broken and battered Hall BDS car, and the course marshal's trying to tell everybody, please go to the outside of this thing. It is in a very precarious position on this course. As a pace car comes out, full course yellow, and so we will shut down again, slow the pace, and we'll be back for a very short sprint to the finish of this race. And right now we're counting down in the final 5 laps of this race. What they must do is get John Andretti's Pennzoil car off of the course. It was, as you saw, in a most precarious position. The CART safety team is right there. Lon Bromley leads that group, and they're going to get as much of the debris off, and then they'll have a wrecker come around, snatch the car off, and we may see as many as 3 laps of racing, perhaps more. Perhaps they'll get it done faster than we anticipate. But we're going to certainly see a very tight battle as we look at the PPG pace car, and just behind it, Michael Andretti, the leader of the race, and just behind Michael, well, the battle for second place will develop. Look at Michael, though, as he gestures to different sections of the circuit. As Fittipaldi's lined up just behind him. Let's get an audio update. Here's Jan Vikas.
They've been speaking with Michael Andretti on the radio, and they've been motioning for CART to come over, and they've been saying, see what we say? The track is really bad, and the cars are going off the track. It's time to stop this event. They're trying very hard to lobby for that. We'll have to find out what CART's response is. Paul?
All right, so Michael Andretti certainly is concerned. And, you know, as we look at this Quaker State onboard camera, we said somewhat with humor that, you know, that's certainly what Michael would want. But the truth is that all of the drivers will get on their radios. There'll be a round consultation. They'll talk with everybody. It won't be some last-minute kind of decision. It'll be a very calculated decision. And if they decide to stop the race early, then it will be because everybody decided it was a very bright thing to do, and it may be.
And of course, the final decision will rest with Wally Dallenbach, who is an ex-race driver himself, so he knows what these conditions can be like. And whenever Wally makes a decision of a serious nature like this, he knows he has the full backing of all the drivers still out there.
That's the good news to the two-way radio communication that they have going around this track. And then there's also just some outright visual communication. You saw it a moment ago. We may see it again as Michael Andretti will come out to different sections of the track and actually show Johnny Rutherford. Take a look at this. Radio this part back. This is a mess here. Very difficult sometimes. You can see on these television shots, sometimes difficult to really evaluate the surface unless you're actually riding across it. The first 6 cars on the track are running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, except you should expect when they come green, they're all going to be right together, and it's going to be a scramble. That is assuming we can get back to green. They certainly have the John Andretti car up on the hook now. They can clear the track quickly, and we should be able to come back to maybe 3 laps of green. When they come back, here's the order. Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, Bobby Rahal. 4th place, Al Unser Jr., Mario Andretti, Ari Luyendyk. 7th is Scott Brayton. 2 laps off the lead. 1st through 6th are all on the same lap, as I mentioned. Then Brayton, then Cheever in 8th. 9th is Danny Sullivan. Mike Groff is 10th. 11th, John Andretti, until he got into the wall. Buddy Lazier, then Didier Tays, then Tony Bettenhausen, then Jeff Andretti, then Hiro Masusta. Those are the cars that are all running at this time. Remember, Rick Mears was the last one out with a quick slap against the wall in the same place that John Andretti got into the wall. Ted Frappus, John Andretti, of course, is out. Scott Goodyear with his electrical problem. A.J. Foyt with a problem in the suspension system. John Jones had an engine problem. And Willie T. Ribbs out with an oil pressure problem. Scott Pruitt out with suspension, the very first car out. So now we wait for the green flag to fly again here at the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. His car now off of the course. We should have just 1 lap to go. 1st through 6th are lined up right behind the PPG pace car. Gary Gerald, you have an update.
Yeah, Paul, we're looking at that lineup as they go through turn number 1 right now. For Fittipaldi, the good news is no lap cars between he and the leader, Michael Andretti, as was the case in the last restart. But the bad news is he's got Rahal and Unser who will be right behind him. So if he gambles and something goes wrong, then he could slide back positions. Now, we also have heard a radio report that Emerson apparently had to go from 5th to 2nd gear dramatically in that last restart in the corner when he got around one of those cars. He consequently thinks that he may have picked up some kind of vibration in the left side tires. How much that's going to impact the handling in these last 4 laps, I guess we're about to find out. Paul?
We certainly are as they head out toward the east end. A couple of other quick updates from this track this weekend. Darren Brasfield was the winner in the Trans Am. Mark Smith, the winner in the Indy Lights. And we want to give you an update, too, on Tommy Kendall, who we know is watching this from his hospital bed in Indianapolis, Indiana, at Methodist Hospital. Good place to send a card. And he is apparently facing a fairly long recovery after his accident a week ago. So now, well, the scene is set. Michael Andretti leads the first 6 cars who are all right together behind the pace car as they acknowledge the green flag this time around, which should come out at this point. It will be 3 laps to the finish of this race. So we've come all of this distance, nearly 200 miles now, and we're going to find that this race is going to be decided in the last few laps. About 14 different gear changes per laps here. 1,400 the entire race. It all comes down to this. The pace car cycles onto the pit road.
It's all up for grabs. The top 6 positions. The green flag is about to fly.
1st through 6th run together. The green flag is out. 2 laps to go as they flash over the line. Michael Andretti out in front. There comes Rahal coming down to the inside, but they stay in line through turn 1.
This is the long acceleration up through turn 2 and turn 3. This is the very heavy braking right-hander. Oh, Sandy watches, times Michael every move he makes.
On the lakeside straight, Michael Andretti picks up a bit of an advantage. Rahal climbs all over the back end of Fittipaldi. Al Unser Jr. is right there behind Rahal with a good result in his pocket if he can just keep there. Better yet, if he can get past his own teammate. And they battle, sliding 2nd, 3rd, 4th through the corners. Remember, the course surface still is not great. It's just a little bit better.
See what happened there? Al Jr. went down the inside of turn 5. Rahal saw what he was about to do, and he jerked down the inside to try and block the line. He wasn't going to pass Fittipaldi, but he did stop Al Jr. making a pass.
Michael Andretti running alone. When he comes to the line this time, it will be 2 laps to go. And the battle is at second place. Michael has managed to pull away just a bit. The fight at second, Rahal coming up behind Fittipaldi. Little Al coming up behind Rahal. And the unsponsored Lyondike car sitting just behind Little Al.
This is exactly what Michael needs. Emerson's hands are full now with the cars behind him, not trying to catch Michael. Rahal is all over him, will make a move if Emerson gives him half a chance. But Little Al is right there to capitalize on any mistake.
So just under 2 laps to go now, as Rahal is right there doing everything he can. Let us not forget the elder Andretti runs in 6th place right now, and he is fighting this leader battle as well. Little Al moves over to the inside. Rahal cuts a little early to protect the line.
Same move again.
That goes advantage to Fittipaldi.
Exactly, same move again. Al Jr. went down the inside. Rahal blocked him, and Emerson pulls 2 car lengths.
First place, Michael Andretti. You see him cycle off the corner as you look at the difference. And first place moving away, but the battle for second is now a 4-car fight.
And Ari Lyondike is right there. He's absolutely behind Al Jr., watching everything that's going on. But they're strung out a little bit here under heavy braking. This is the last turn, 9 and 10.
Decision time now as the white flag comes out. Just a tick over 2 miles. 1 lap to go for Michael Andretti. He has not finished here in a very long time. Will he finish in the top spot? Very likely. But it's not over until that checkered flag comes out. And the battle for second place continues to heat up. There's Michael on the lakeside straight. The number 2 Kmart Haviland car. And he's looking perfect. But remember, that surface is very, very slick. Anything could happen at this point. Michael is certainly well aware of that. But he's also well aware if he hesitates even for a moment, then Fittipaldi, Rahal, Hunter Jr., and Lyondike are going to be right on top of him. And Rahal continues to work for second place, right behind Emerson Fittipaldi.
Rahal keeping Emerson honest and on his toes here, but Lyondike made an attempt earlier on to get by Alonso Jr. But look at Rahal. This is his last chance. This is the only time he can make a pass under heavy braking here for turn 9.
Michael Andretti runs all alone. Here is the battle, and Rahal's going to try the brakes, but it won't work here. He climbs in behind Fittipaldi. They come onto the pit straight. The twin checkered flags out for Michael Andretti. Michael Andretti has scored the win, and Rahal strings out alongside of Emerson Fittipaldi. But Fittipaldi comes across the line in second, Rahal in third, Al Unser Jr. fourth, Ari Lyondike fifth, and Mario Andretti sixth. A whale of a fight at the end, but in all of it, nothing changes. Michael Andretti scores the victory. 2 in a row now for Michael, the only man to score multiple wins in this season. A spectacular win for Michael Andretti on a very, very hot afternoon in Cleveland. And they have really taken on all the odds. The heat, the roughness of the circuit, and the fact that much of this circuit has actually been breaking up through most of the day. And boy, take a look at that. Ed Nathman, the team manager for Newman Haas. When you win, it does feel awfully good. Awfully good.
What a great day when a situation like this happens. Michael Andretti, arguably the fastest man in IndyCar racing at the moment, made a tremendous statement this afternoon, just how hard he had to drive. We had great camera footage of him off the racetrack earlier on, got on the grass, had the car sideways, got out of the groove on the next turn, out of control for 2 corners, brings it back on. All the adversity still takes it home. Look at that, number 1 finger in the air.
And try this one out. Even with 2 full course cautions, one of them quite lengthy, it's a new track record. Race record 117.76 miles an hour for Michael Andretti, who will take the lion's share of the $750,000 purse here in the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. A long, hot afternoon, 201.3 miles. And Sandy is saying, where's Michael? I got a cold drink for him. And most of all, a great congratulations. Michael has picked up the win. First, second, and third now roll to a stop. Their engine silent for the first time today, right on the center of the pit road. And Michael Andretti climbs out of the car. What a happy man he must be. This is going to make a big difference in the points count for Michael. And he is now, without question, the force to be reckoned with here in the mid-season in the IndyCars, especially considering that we have ahead in a week the Meadowlands and in 2 weeks Toronto, both road courses. And Michael has certainly proved that he is the master when it comes to these road circuits. Now let's go down. Here's Gary Gerald with our winner.
And indeed, that cool drink has got to feel awful good. This is a tough day's work. Understand you had brakes going away late.
You guys don't miss a trick, do you? Yeah, for sure. I didn't want to mention too much over the radio so the other guys wouldn't know, but after the cautions, I guess I boiled my fluid under the caution, and I had a very long pedal the whole last part after the first yellow, so it was a little closer than most people thought.
What was the emotion when you got that last yellow and you knew that Emerson and everybody else was going to have a chance to challenge again?
I wasn't happy about it, but you know, what can you do? That's the breaks of the game, and you know, luckily we were able to come out all right.
Tell us about the track conditions now, because we kept hearing reports from various drivers, yourself included, that it was very, very difficult. Was it dangerous?
A little bit, yeah. It was getting really bad, but then they swept it, then it got a little bit better. And it was starting to get worse again, but you know, I guess to put the green out for the last 3 laps was okay, because they knew the track wasn't going to break up too much from then.
This really does wonders for your bid now for a championship, as you can close some ground. But of course, Ray Hall is again a top 5 finisher.
I know, he keeps doing that. He's going to be tough, but you know, right now we're doing everything we can.
Congratulations, Michael Andretti savors this one. Let's go now to Jan Beekes with Emerson Fittipaldi.
Emerson Fittipaldi has just gotten out of his Marlboro car, and he's very, very hot. He reaches for the water. He wants to make sure he has that water. How tough was it out there today with those track conditions?
Well, it was very tough. When I was in the race, I nearly spun 3 times, and you know, the last 10 laps I ran out of clutch. I had a lot of problems changing gears and braking. I was very slow into the brake. That's what happened. But
now, one stage you had a big lead, and we heard a report that possibly you'd missed a gear that had allowed Michael to close in.
Well, I nearly spun off. I got on the loose stuff. I went very wide. I had to back off, and that's when Michael caught me.
So do you think the difference was being able to be consistent in the bad conditions, as opposed to you think you guys were about the same speed on the track when you're running?
Well, I think mid-race, Michael possibly was running faster than I was. The last segment, I should be fast, but then I ran out of clutch.
Okay, you guys are really picking up the heat here in the late part of the season. Let's go back up to Paul.
Emerson Fittipaldi, after a great battle, finishes in 2nd place. Michael Andretti, who came off of the Long Beach race, 17th in the points, now moves into 2nd place, just 10 points behind Bobby Rahal. We'll be back with more. Blimp over Lake Erie, looking down on the Burke Lakefront Airport, which very, very shortly will become an airport once again. Believe me, they clean these runways off quite quickly. Now, the Spirit of Akron, the airship we see there, is not going to land here, but there are a lot of jets and private airplanes that like to use this airport. They will be able to use it shortly because the Indy cars are done, at least for the 10th running here in the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix, and Michael Andretti's name is at the top of the order as he has won in a marvelous battle with Emerson Fittipaldi. Bobby Rahal is finishing in 3rd. These are unofficial at the moment. Al Unser Jr. is 4th. Ari Leindyke with a splendid run in 5th place. Some sponsor really must look at that car now. In 6th place, Mario Andretti. Scott Brayton in 7th. Eddie Cheever in 8th place. 9th unofficially, Danny Sullivan. And 10th, with another splendid run, is Mike Groff. So now, many of those who have been in the yachts begin to go away, but we do not. Let's go down to Gary Gerald.
Bobby Rahal is in the cockpit of his car, and he's been under a heavy physical regimen in recent months, a lot of bicycle riding. I hope it paid off today, because this is about as tough in an Indy car as it gets from a physical standpoint.
You know, it's not so much the heat here. It's so rough. You know, and it got rougher as the race progressed because the track kept coming up. And, I mean, you just take a pounding, and it just, after a while, it hurts almost. But, you know, I'm not sure if we had our car 100%, but it ran strong all through the race. And my pit crew did a Gallus Craco guys, you know, once again, you know, they got me ahead of Al. And sorry, Maury, it's not a win, but we'll get him next time.
Maury Cranes, as we've indicated earlier, reconvalescing from back surgery in Southern California. You had the run with the yellow there to try to close on Emerson, and you were really knocking on that door continually.
Yeah, I tried to. It seems he can pull me a little bit like mid-gears, like 4th, 5th gear. Because I was staying with him off the corners, and I'd lose a little bit, and I'd close up under brake. And once or twice, I thought maybe we might have a shot, but just ran out of room.
Season points leader protecting that lead. Congratulations, Bobby.
Well, thank you. I'd like to have come away with a win, but we'll get him next week.
All right, those 2nds and 3rds piling up as we go to Jan Beekes.
All right, Leindyke, a great run for you. You had a chance to make a couple moves there right in the end.
Yeah, right at the end, you know, the yellow really helped me because I was 15 seconds behind Mario, and I passed him when he slid off the course on the pebbles there on the outside of the groove. And I was able to challenge little Al, and I kind of snuck up beside him, but, you know, just didn't have enough laps. And the car felt good at the end, and I'm really, really happy with the way the crew did their job in the pits. They got me in and out really fast, and you know, the car ran good all day. And right now our team is in the middle of looking for sponsorship, and it's something that we really need bad. Since, you know, today with the 5th place, we're still right up there in the points.
There's a flood of reporters here. You had as many people here as certainly as Michael did for winning the race because of the fact of all this team stuff. Will you be at the Meadowlands?
We will be at the Meadowlands and we will be at Toronto, and after that, we'll just have to see what happens.
Ari Leyendijk with one of his best runs, but they're looking for sponsors. Paul?
Ari Leyendijk, a 5th place finish puts him 3rd in the points. The points are now Ray Hall with 104, Michael Andretti 10 back with 94, Ari Leyendijk 3rd place with 79, Al Unser Jr. 78, Fittipaldi 77, and Rick Mears, who started in 2nd place, has dropped down to 6th in the points right now. Let's go down to Gary Gerald.
Mario Andretti is alongside, waiting to get an opportunity to go back and legitimately cool off. Mario, this was where you got the last win 3 years ago, and for much of the early part of this race today, it looked like you might be a factor again at the end. Any particular problems that you had to chase?
Yeah, the car was perfect, other than I was bottoming very heavily on the front. And we're going to try to see why. Somehow it seemed like we might have lost just a hair of height, ride height, you know, like it could be a 1/16 of an inch or something. And especially in the critical corners where it was breaking up, I had to be right on the apex, and when I would bottom, the car would just jump, and a couple of times I just wound up in the grass, and that really hurt me.
How much did this course change from the last time you were on it yesterday until this morning session and the race this afternoon?
Well, it changed because after the previous races, they had a Trans Am race. I think the track that just got destroyed, where they had sealer down, it just peeled off, and then the track got very marbly. So it was a shame because it was a very good track until yesterday afternoon.
Was it a dangerous condition today?
Not dangerous, was a bit of a nuisance, and if you, as I say, if you had any little problem, you miscue your line, and then you just had it in marbles.
Well, we'll see you next week at the Meadowlands.
Look forward to it.
All right, thank you, Mario. Paul?
Mario Andretti, what is a nuisance for him would be devastating to the rest of us. Mario Andretti with a really spectacular run comes home in 6th place. His son Michael is the winner here at the Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix. We'll be back with more right after this.